Today we're talking about the extinction of humanity. Did you know there actually exists a movement for the willed extinction of humanity, self-extinction? And it's actually not too much of an uncommon thought for people to think that humanity should end because look at all the suffering in the world, look how much the planet is destroyed by the actions of humanity. So today we're going to be looking at, will humanity go extinct? Is it a bad thing if they do? And then we're going to take a look at the rapid advancements of technology and, in addition to that, Hyperion's goal of elevating the consciousness of humanity to a new level. And we'll see, is humanity really ending, or is it actually the beginning of something new? All right, so first we're going to take a look at this article that I was reading on IAI.tv, and this is just the very end of the article. And so we're not going to be looking at the whole thing here, but I just wanted to, I think it was a good summary of what we're discussing about today. And it says, talking about extinction becomes more sensitive when the species whose extinction one is considering is Homo sapiens. Some of those advocating voluntary human extinction, and we're going to take a look at this. We're going to actually look at this. This is called the Voluntary Human Extinction movement. But some of those advocating voluntary human extinction do so precisely because of how destructive our species is. So because humanity is destructive and contributing to the degradation of the planet and other species, there is a group advocating voluntary human extinction. So yet the recommendation is not that humans be killed off, right? They're not trying to kill other humans off. Instead, another route to extinction is recommended: non-procreation. So the idea here of this, and I'll bring up this the movement itself, because here's the website for the movement itself. And so they advocate voluntary human extinction movement. So they're not, trying to kill people off or anything like this. What they are simply talking about is for humans to voluntarily decide en masse to no longer have children. And then humanity would just phase out in sort of a quiet whimper, not some sort of like huge cataclysmic event or things like that. But let's take a look at this, because I mean, they're really advocating for this because of the degradation that and impact that humans negatively have on the planet. But this is a problem that you run into when you don't understand what reality is. Okay, so this is why I always say it is critically important to understand what you are, where you are, and why you're here. And you can't understand why you are here until you know what you are and where you are, because that is the necessary knowledge to understand why you're here. And so when you don't understand what existence is, or why we're here, or where you are, or what's going on, a lot of people actually find this sort of idea attractive because they think about, oh wow, look at this world is just such a terrible place. It would be better if humans never existed. But what they don't realize, the important thing to understand here, is that humanity is not something that needs to be destroyed. Humanity is something that needs to be overcome. And that's the big difference here. Will humanity go extinct? Yes. Yes, it will. But not because it is ended in a way that involves something like ceasing to have kids or some sort of mass extinction event. Humanity will end because it will have become something else. And that's exactly the goal of Hyperionism. The goal of Hyperionism is to create a new humanity and a new Earth. We're here to elevate consciousness, to go from self-awareness into hyper-awareness. And so humanity is an obstacle to overcome. It will become something else. It won't end, but rather it will be transformed. And that's really the important thing to understand here. And Friedrich Nietzsche knew this. Friedrich Nietzsche saw humanity as a bridge between the animal and a new kind of human. In Hyperionism, this is the Hyperion, which is a new, a higher, a transformed humanity. And this, has to do with what it is a evolving of consciousness, going from self-awareness to hyper-awareness. And we want the entire world. We want everyone to be able to step into this and actualize themselves. All right. So it's not about like looking down on other people. And I think a lot of people get confused there. It's not like looking down on other people or hating other people or anything like that. It's about helping others. If you're at a level that's, if you have a vantage point that's higher than someone else, your job isn't to look down on them. Your job is to help them up. And I see a lot of people making that mistake. So I want to make that very, very clear. In Hyperianism, the fact that, you know, we're at a higher vantage point, it's not to look down and hate or deride any others. It's to bring them up with us. We want everyone to rise with us. Like, you know, I want everyone who encounters the information I put out there to go as far and as high as they can. Hell, yes, like please surpass my knowledge. Please do so. Like actualize yourself until you surpass me. Like that's what I consider myself like a teacher, someone that teaches. I mean, education is really important to me. Hyperianism ultimately is a system for education because we want to educate the world and thus through knowledge transform the world. And the goal of a real teacher wants to see their student surpass the teacher. Like that's how you know you did a good job, is if the student, you know, goes further than you. That's like the ultimate goal. But anyway, I just point this out because it's not any kind of like, you know, trying to keep people below you or anything like that. But anyway, I'm going a little off topic and I have to stop doing that because I want to make these videos shorter. But the idea here is that humanity will be ended, but it will be because of a transformation. The end of humanity is the birth of a new humanity. The end of an old humanity is the birth of a new humanity. So if you kind of look at it like a caterpillar ends and the butterfly begins. But imagine if all the caterpillars just decided to end their lives. You'd never get to the butterfly. And that's kind of what this, like voluntary human extinction movement is. They don't understand what reality is, where we are, why we're here. They don't know what humans are. They don't know what a planet is. A planet is just a seed. It's a seed for monadic synchronization so that we all can learn. When we all incarnate or localize onto a planet, we're in a place with limited space, limited resources. And so it sort of forces us to learn to work together or die. So we have monadic minds that localize onto a planet, and a planet is limited in size and resources. So as monadic minds, you must learn to synchronize and work together or die. Not the minds, but the avatars will. So you can think of like Earth is sort of the cocoon. And it's the cocoon for humanity to be birthed into a brilliant butterfly. And so this is the real big problem. And why, when we create a new world, we really have to elevate people to a new level of consciousness, which is hyper-awareness, which is our goal, to have humanity be raised to that level, so that you see these terrible conclusions that people come to, like this voluntary human extinction movement, which is exactly the opposite of the purpose of reality and the purpose of a planet. And yes, it is true that humanity is in a really bad state right now, and it's very degrading to the planet and degrading to each other and people who live here. But the goal isn't to just die. The goal is to learn how to work together so that we can create something new. Like the philosopher Nietzsche pointed out, humanity is a bridge. Humanity is a stepping stone. Humanity is not the goal. Humanity is something to be overcome. And that's the whole point, is that yes, humanity will end, but it will end because it became something new, just like the caterpillar ended to become the butterfly. And so when you really look at it, with the development of, the rapid development of technology and ultimately being able to alter our avatars, we'll be able to alter our avatars in completely different ways. And then the elevation of consciousness, which is what Hyperianism is all about, is elevating humanity to a new level of consciousness. We're going to have entirely new avatars. We're going to have an entirely new consciousness. So ultimately, we will have completely transcended humanity. We'll have different avatars, we'll have a different consciousness, and humanity will just have been a link in the chain of our past, from ape to human to what's next. And again, this isn't any sort of like looking down on people. We want everyone to be able to move to that level, and ultimately they will. Again, with the rapid development of technology and Hyperianism bringing what's most important, regardless of anything else, right? Regardless of technology, regardless of any kind of innovation, the most important thing is the elevation of consciousness into hyper-awareness. And that's the goal of Hyperianism. But I find let's continue to look at this, because I think that this voluntary human extinction movement is a prime example of something that can go very wrong when you don't understand what reality is or why we're here. Because yes, you look at existence and think, wow, like humanity's in a really shitty place right now, but you don't end it. You just learn to work together. It's like being at a very hard level on a video game. You don't just turn off the video game and stop playing. You want to reach the next level. You want to play, you want to overcome it. And if you really think about it, you know, people look at humans as being, oh, these, you know, such bloody and destructive creatures. And we are, but we're also learning to overcome that. Because I mean, if you look at our evolutionary history and the tooth and nail, the bloody fighting of the jungle, of, you know, like dinosaurs ripping each other apart to shreds. It's not like animals are these, you know, peace-loving saints that are just sitting around eating fruit all day. The earth has been a place of total, complete destruction and bloodshed constantly. So yes, humans are extremely destructive, but through the use of our reason, we're beginning to learn how to overcome that and work together. Now, it's happening. The state of the world is real bad right now, and it's true that humanity has a choice to make. Either it can stay with the old world and old ways of doing things, and you know, keep the billionaires in power and lead to absolute and total destruction, and you know, previous to that, a life of subservience to an elite class, or it can take the path of becoming hyper aware and working together and birthing an entirely new world where we are having meaningful experiences and learning and growing together and really reaching that new level of not trying to struggle to survive, because up to this point, and including this point, it's all been a struggle to survive. But finally, we'll reach the point where we can start to thrive and live together in a new Terran society where we are in that butterfly stage rather than, you know, the worm. So anyway, I find this to be fascinating still. So Vehement is a movement, not an organization. It's a movement advanced by people who care about life on Earth. And I mean, yeah, they care about life on Earth, which is nice, but you shouldn't just arbitrarily care about life. You have to know what life is. If you don't know what life is, you don't understand there's a goal, there's a teleology. You don't understand that there's a purpose for it. The purpose of Earth has been the teleological goal to get us to the level of human, so that we can begin to transcend. And to snuff out humanity would be to work in opposition to life. Because we are the product of life. We are the product of these billions of years of evolution. And so we are what life has achieved. And so you can say you care about life, but if you don't understand what life is and you try to remove humanity, you are destroying the exact teleological goal of what the earth is intended to do. Right? It's sort of like if you have a seed and a sprout is beginning to form, but then like the seed is cracking. And you're like, oh shit, well, we gotta snip the sprout because it's ruining the seed. It's like, no, you don't understand the purpose of the seed. You don't understand like that. It's supposed. Now, I'm not saying that the earth needs to be destroyed. I'm not saying like that. It's not a perfect analogy, but I think you get what I mean. So they say, when every human chooses to stop breeding, Earth's biosphere will be allowed to return to its former glory, and all remaining creatures will be free to live, die, evolve, and will pass away. So as so many of nature's experiments have done throughout the eons. It's going to take all of us. And so they look at it this really positive, you know, it almost seems, you know, it's ridiculous. Like they have this picture of the dinosaur and I suppose the chicken, I guess that's what that is, hugging a human that's no longer there. And it says visualize the voluntary human extinction. So apparently the human, like, it just doesn't, it's really ridiculous. I mean, it's not like taking humans away is going to alleviate suffering. That dinosaur is just going to fucking eat that chicken. It doesn't matter if the human's there or not. But, you know, the question is like, are you really serious? Yes, we're really vehement. And they're kind of poking fun about this. But there's a really important thing that, see, it says, in the end, the real enemies are human greed, ignorance, and oppression. We can achieve more by promoting generosity, awareness, and freedom than we can by vainly kicking at a buttless foe. And I mean, that's fine, but the way is not to do it through ending humanity. So this is a really important thing, right? So this is really telling and a really important glimpse into the psychology of this movement and people who advocate for this. Because in this section it says, when did, how, and Vehement, the voluntary human extinction movement, start? It says, someone had to get the idea that the planet would be better off without this busy horde, meaning humanity. Someone that is besides the Middle Eastern God, Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah. Tradition tells us how in prehistoric times, the creator God realized his mistake in making humans and was going to flush us from the system. But in a weak moment, he spared one breeding family. And I think this is a huge glimpse into the psychology here of this movement, in that they are looking at, so you have this story of God in the Old Testament, in Genesis, he creates Earth, humans are flourishing, and then guess what? He decides that humans are evil and sinful, and he sends a flood to kill every single human except for Noah and his family. And so this movement is looking at that as a positive thing. They're saying like, oh yeah, God had the right idea of flooding and killing every single human, but he was weak in allowing one family to survive so that they could continue to breed. And I think that, you know, that's absolutely disgusting to look at that story as a positive story, and not only that, but think that the entirety of humanity should have been wiped out, period. And again, I understand a lot of people out there who kind of have this mentality because they think how much destruction humanity creates. But again, this is a necessary step in transitioning to a new form. We are essentially tied to this biological avatar that has all these animalistic behaviors, which includes violence and aggression, but we also have reason to begin to use to order our instinctual and evolutionary traits and harness them, and so that we can begin to work together and not be so animalistic. And that's what's really important here to understand, is that the humanity is half insane, because they are this, rational, beginning to develop reason, but they're still kind of tied to this monkey brain at the same time. So humans are half insane, and it's important to develop reason to be able to create a humanity that works together in a positive manner. And the answer is not the destruction of all of humanity. That again, you are taking the role of the evil Abrahamic creator God at that point, and you're looking at it as something positive. And that's absolutely disgusting. And so it's important to say that, so this movement, right, they're not trying to like kill anyone or anything like that. It says at first glance, some people assume that vehement volunteers and supporters must hate people, and that we want everyone to commit suicide or become victims of mass murder. It's easy to forget that another way to bring about a reduction in our members is simply to stop making more of us. Making babies seems to be a blind spot in our outlooks on life. The idea of all of us voluntarily refraining from procreation is often dismissed without much consideration. However, if anyone thinks about the situation long enough and makes the effort to work through the blocks to clear thinking, we will arrive at virtually the same conclusion. We should voluntarily phase ourselves out for the good of humanity and planet. Now, how does that even make sense? I mean, like, I have not read the entirety of their website by any means, but how does that sentence just even make sense? We should voluntarily phase ourselves out for the good of humanity and the planet. And I think what they're trying to say is that when humans are born, they're born into suffering. And so if we phased out humanity, humans would never be born. Therefore, they would never suffer. Therefore, it's actually good for humanity because it stops human suffering. But you see, these are just the crazy ideas you get when you don't understand what reality is or where you are or why you're here, because you're not going to stop relocalizing. You're not going to stop reincarnating. If there are no human avatars, you'll just either incarnate as an animal or incarnate as another being on another planet. You cannot stop existing. You can't cease to exist. Non-existence is a logical impossibility. It's impossible. You can't not exist. It's also impossible to imagine non-existence. You can never imagine non-existence. You can imagine blackness for a long time, but that's not, darkness, but that's not the same thing as non-existence. You can imagine or say like, oh, it was like how I was before I was born, but that's not an actual state. You have no memory of what it was like before you were born. So you can't point to lack of memory as being an experiential qualitative state, because it isn't. It's a lack of memory. You also don't know, you can't remember what you were doing, let's say 12 years ago at exactly this date at 5:37 p.m. But that doesn't mean something didn't happen or that you didn't exist there. At that point, non-existence is a logical impossibility. We will always exist. We have to exist. We must exist. And so we need to improve our conditions, not try to end all life. That is a feat that is an impossibility. And so Vehement is naturally in opposition to involuntary extinction of any species, as well as any efforts of encouraging human extermination. These are presently considered efforts supporting both of these horrors, for example, weapons, toxic production, fascism. So they're saying they're against all of these things. They're against what these people are doing. And if anyone is interested, you can check out the website. I mean, it's an absolutely, they have tons and tons and tons of articles here. But the whole idea is just patently absurd. And sorry, just a minute here. So anyway, what I was saying is the important thing to really grasp here is that you will come to these nihilistic, absurd ideas when you don't understand what existence is, what reality is, or why we're here. That's why it's important to use reason to understand existence, because you'll believe in a creator God that creates the earth in a week. You'll believe in New Age mysticism. You'll believe in atheistic science, or you could believe that humanity is a plague and should be wiped out. And this kind of thinking is actually a product of not using reason. You know how I was talking about humanity being half insane because they haven't properly developed their use of reason? Case in point, you have this group of human beings that want to end humanity. Like, this is I say it all the time that this world is a madhouse. And please, but realize, as I always say, that's not hyperbole. That's not an exaggeration. There's these groups of humans trying to end humanity. It's crazy. It's insane here. You have these people trying to end humanity. You have these people over here who believe that some guy in the clouds created the earth in a week. And you just have insanity from all angles. It's just accepted because you're immersed in it. Just like a fish isn't aware of the water because they're constantly in the water, just like we're constantly immersed in this insanity, so we take it as being completely normal. But it's absolutely insane. And it's the lack of reason that leads to this insanity. It's the lack of reason that leads to humanity wanting to end humanity. And again, I get that humanity is in a shitty place, but that's exactly why we need to transcend and overcome humanity. And Nietzsche, by the way, if you haven't watched the video on the Hyperion Source just released a video yesterday about Friedrich Nietzsche. So I highly encourage you to go watch that if you're not too familiar with Nietzsche's work. And it's specifically, I believe, on this topic about going higher and beyond human, is that Nietzsche saw that humanity in the world was in a terrible state. But what did Nietzsche try to do? Did Nietzsche try to end humanity? No. Nietzsche said what humans must do is overcome themselves and transform themselves into something new, to revalue all values, to go beyond themselves and transform themselves. And that's exactly the Hyperion prerogative. What we are doing here is transforming the world. And so will humanity end and go extinct? Well, yes, but not because it was willfully ended via self-destruction. Because the title of this video is, will humanity go extinct and is it a bad thing? If it were to go extinct by that avenue, yes, it's a terrible thing. Because you have basically taken a seed that's sprouting and killed the sprout. That's what you've done. Now, will humanity end? It will end not because it was killed off or anything crazy like that, but because it was transformed and elevated, just like the caterpillar was transformed and elevated. Just like the seed gives way to the sprout, which gives way to the tree. The sprout ends the seed, and the tree ends the sprout, but it's all preserved within it. So we will transform and go above humanity, but humanity will still be preserved within us at the same time as a necessary step in our sort of cosmic lineage, just like our entire evolutionary history is preserved in us right now. I mean, just look at our biological avatars. You have these different traces of all these different, you have like the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and the neocortex being the most recent development that allows us to use our faculties of reason and whatnot. But you have all these different portions of the brain, like, again, the limbic system and the brainstem and all that are all products of evolution in our history. And we have transformed and transcended to the level of human. But now, through Hyperionism, humanity is going above and beyond that. And, us here in Hyperionism, we've done this, those of us who've put in the real work, but we want to elevate the rest of humanity there as well. So that's what we must do. We are a new evolutionary step that initiates an end of humanity because it's the beginning of something else. It's a transition. It's not a dead end and a destruction. It's a transformation, like a caterpillar into the butterfly. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon, especially Cassidy, Alana, Renaissance Fairy, Michael, Alan, Evie, and Angela. Everyone who supports my work, thank you so much. If you ever feel like you've gotten something or learned something from my work, consider supporting on Patreon. You help me out, I can help you out, and we help the world out. It's a feedback loop. It's effective. So make sure that you remember that when you do support, you get access to our weekly secret live streams. We're having one right after this stream, and our hidden Discord server, the Citadel. And with all the censorship and deplatforming, it's the best way to support. So thank you very much.